So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Women in Innovation webinar in partnership with WeConnect International. Today, we are joined by the Executive Director for Europe at WeConnect International, Maggie Berry, who will be talking to us about how WeConnect International drives business growth through women-owned businesses through corporate supply chains. So I'm going to hand over directly to Maggie now, who will kick off for us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shiwan. Let me just share my slides with you all. Bear with me. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon and to find out a bit more about inclusive supply chains and WeConnect International. As Shiwan said, my name is Maggie Berry. I'm the Executive Director for Europe for WeConnect International, and the We of WeConnect stands for Women's Enterprise. And we are all about connecting women-owned businesses into corporate supply chains. We would describe ourselves as a supplier diversity campaign, and most of you will be very familiar, with diversity and inclusion in terms of workforce. Is big business hiring women, promoting them, getting them coming back after maternity leave, women on boards, all that good stuff, all still very much needed. What we're looking at is actually whether big business also has diversity in its supply chains in terms of who does it spend its money with, and is big business buying products and services from women-owned businesses. Now, WeConnect is a gender campaign, so we're focused on women-owned businesses all around the world, but the supplier diversity topic also includes ethnic minority-owned businesses, businesses owned by people with disabilities, businesses, LGBTQI plus owned businesses, and in the United States it would also include veterans, so ex-service people. So it's a broad range. But for us, we're focused on women. And what I will say is, it isn't about positive discrimination. We don't expect any of the corporations we work with to buy from a women-owned business just because they're women-owned. However, we would really like them to open up visibility on their business opportunities so that more women-owned businesses have the chance to compete to win that business. And that's incredibly important to us. You may or may not know, women are an emerging market. We are a global business opportunity. We influence a huge percentage of consumer purchasing decisions. But today we estimate that only 1% of corporate and government spend globally goes to women-owned businesses all around the world, and we are on a mission to shift this 1%. But even getting it to 2% or 3%, it's billions of dollars. And it isn't something that can be achieved overnight, and it isn't something that can be achieved by one corporation or one government alone. It absolutely needs a coalition approach and support from corporations and governments, and for there to be more women-owned businesses out there with the products and services that corporations want to buy. And WeConnect International, we are corporate-led, not-for-profit. We were actually established by a group of multinational corporations who wanted to look at supplier diversity outside of the US. So, we from the very beginning, we've been set up with a drive from corporations. The members, the corporations that we work with, they have over $1 trillion of spend of women all around the world. And although I'm based here in the UK and I run our campaign across Europe, I've got colleagues, in Canada, in India, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, in Africa. So, it is a genuinely global organization, and is also very interesting for, for women-owned businesses who are working in multiple locations around the world. Now, one of the key things that we have a central database that large multinationals can access that lists all these amazing women-owned businesses that they could potentially buy from, and that represents women-owned businesses in over 120 countries around the world. And everything we're doing is how we can help these large corporates to buy more from women-owned businesses. So I feel very privileged to do my job. We work with an amazing coalition of corporations and an amazing network of women-owned businesses. So these are the corporations we work with. You will recognize many of the brands, and these organizations all have a commitment to buying more products and services specifically from women-owned businesses. And what I normally say when I'm talking to business owners is, if you look at this list of corporations and you're like, yeah, these are the kind of firms I want to sell my products and services to, then WeConnect International is probably going to be interesting for you. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that I can make any of our corporations buy directly from any of our women-owned businesses, but we will absolutely work to create the connections to facilitate those opportunities as much as we can. So this is our global list of corporations. Here in Europe, we work with a good percentage of them. Europe is a very busy region for the organization, and we have a lot of activities going on with these firms as they look to build programs that will help them to engage, get to know and build relationships with more women-owned businesses who could be a future potential supplier should they have the right skill set, the right products, the right services, all the right things that they need for a supplier to be considered. So yeah, if this looks like the kind of firms you're interested in, then definitely have a look at registering with us. Now, we have a very clear definition of what is a women-owned business. And for us, a women-owned business needs to have minimum 51% of the shareholding in female hands. It can be one or more women, but it has to be majority female. We're also looking at the day-to-day management and ultimately the control of the business, and that it's all sitting in female hands. And this is very clear, set globally, and is actually set by the corporations we work with. That's the definition they want us to work to. For women-owned businesses, you can register with us for free anywhere in the world outside of the United States. So here in the UK, you can register with us for free. Or we do also offer a more formal registration that we call certification. And I'm going to share a few more details in a moment. This is paid for, and it is a formal accreditation, and it's offered in nearly 50 countries around the world. And in Europe, it's offered in the UK and Ireland, Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands. So keep an eye on that 51%. That's very important to us. And as I say, you can register with us for free. You do have to give us some information about your business. It isn't just a case of putting your email address in. It is a more detailed registration process than that, but you can do it for free. And then in terms of certification itself, as I said, this is it's a formal accreditation. It's actually a tool that the corporations, so all those members that I showed you in the slide earlier, all those corporations are using this as a way to track the spend that they have with women-owned businesses, because they know if they're certified that they're definitely who they say they are. And they want to be able to track and report and hopefully publish data about the diverse spend that they have within their supply chain. So it's absolutely a tool that the corporations use. It's a very robust assessment. It's valid globally. We're looking at the three core elements: the ownership, the management, and the control. Sometimes do them in person. At the moment, everything's virtual, but a lot are done virtual anyway. And there's a very detailed process with ultimately reports being submitted back to our head office team, which is in Washington, DC. And then it's called certification because at the end, you literally get a certificate that says we are a certified women's business enterprise. Fees range, as it says, between $350 and $700. We quote in dollars, even though we're here in the UK, we quote in dollars because this is done, it's done globally and is paid via our head office in the United States. So if you're interested in certification at the end of this, if you're like, oh, that sounds interesting, I'd like to find out more, there are details on the website, but also happy to get you in touch with the team here so that you can find out more. It's obviously not an insignificant investment, so we'd expect to chat to businesses before they do that. But one of the big things we do, and as I referenced, is that we're helping our member buyers to buy more products and services from women-owned businesses. And one of the ways they do is quite simply, they share visibility on their procurement requirements with us when they're running an RFI or an RFP or just a tender generally. They let us know what they're looking to buy. We then do the research and identify and connect them to relevant women-owned businesses who can provide the product or service they're looking for. We obviously use our own database. We would look at our certified businesses first. We'd look at our wider network of registered businesses. And if there was time and if there was, a skill set that we didn't have sitting on the database, we'd also reach out to a wider network of networks to try and proactively identify more women-owned businesses that we can connect them to. And once they're involved in the process, we've given the names, it's over to the women-owned business to compete equally to win the opportunity. As I said, the corporations aren't going to gift the business to a women-owned business just because of who they are, or any of the diverse owned businesses. but they certainly do want more diverse businesses to have the opportunity, as I said, to compete. So also keep that in mind. They are looking for all of the, all of the requirements that they'd be expecting from any supplier. So we spend a lot of time, the team here and globally, we spend a lot of time looking at these business opportunities. And these are just some of the example RFPs that have come in to the Europe team, in the last kind of 12 to 18 months or so. There's a real variety. And I have to say, sometimes it's just not possible for us to find a women-owned business that does this specific thing. And then other times in other sectors, say like creative or translation, we are maybe much more likely to have a wider choice of women-owned businesses that they can consider. So this is really broad. I mean, it's all over this region and there's all sorts of different things. But if you think about any of the stuff that a corporate might buy, they're the kind of things that are landing on our desk that we're then looking for. It's almost like corporate matchmaking. And I wanted to share, as part of this, 3 examples of how we've helped women-owned businesses in the UK to win business with our member buyers. So I'm just going to work my way across. So KTS Events, as it says, they're an events management company. And we had received an RFP request from one of the tech corporate members. Actually, it was for an opportunity in France for events management. I'd contacted KTS, they work globally, and we put them in touch, and they went into the tender process and started to participate and complete all the documentation. At the same time, the corporate member realized that not only were they looking for event suppliers in France, they also need them in Ireland. And so they almost did this dual RFP process all the way through and were successful in that formal bid to end up winning actually both opportunities, which is fantastic. And they competed with the other suppliers. I say the bit we did was make that initial connection, and then it was over to KTS and the team at KTS to be the brilliant events management supplier that they are. Now they did have experience of participating in tenders before. It wasn't the first time that they'd participated in a bid process like that, so they were ready. They did have, for example, policy, environmental policy documents, all sort of things like that. But WeConnect provided that initial connection, and then they were able to work their way through and ultimately win the business, which is great. So that's an example of working through a formal RFP opportunity. Gibbs Hybrid, they're a workforce management staffing supplier. They're actually one of our largest women-owned businesses in this region. And at our conference a few years ago, we had organised, and we still do this, we're doing it virtually at the moment, we'd organised what we call a matchmaker, whereby for our certified businesses, we had shared their profiles with our member buyers. They could then choose who they wanted to sit and have a one-on-one conversation with. And Gibbs Hybrid had ended up having a conversation with one of the financial services organisations. And that kick-started, that was a 15-minute one-on-one. It then kick-started a longer discussion, a broader discussion that actually took place over, I think, about the next 9 to 12 months, as they were understanding how Gibbs Hybrid could provide them with support. And it ended up working through to the point that they signed a master services agreement that enabled them to win the business. And that came from that initial matchmaking connection that was facilitated through WeConnect at one of our events. And as I said, we're doing that we're doing the matchmaking virtually at the moment and making use of technology this year to maintain our ability to create connections. So that had come from a matchmaker at one of our events. And then the sourcing team, very engaged business within the WeConnect International community, had participated in lots of different events that we were doing. And it happened to be that at one of them, they'd sat next to one of the buyers from one of the UK-based corporates in the automotive sector, and they just got chatting. Sourcing team do high-level kind of promotional items, branded items, and they got the opportunity, based on having an informal conversation, to submit their details for consideration by the graduate recruitment team at this automotive corporate member. So they had the chance to present their business. It wasn't a formal opportunity that had been publicised somewhere, but as the colleague knew that there was this opportunity upcoming, and Jill and the team were able to submit their details and present their ability to provide the promotional items required by the graduate recruitment team, which is one part of that business. And so that came from an informal introduction. So I just want to share 3 different ways: from a formal RFP, we need a supplier, we need them now, and who have you got, to for Gibbs Hybrid, the one-on-one introduction from an event, and then the sourcing team, being there and participating, and that they've made these connections. Different ways that we can help our women-owned businesses to win business with multinational corporations. So I hope that's giving you a bit of an idea of how we work, and we're doing this stuff all the time, week in, week out, month in, month out. It's an ongoing part of the work that we're doing. So always interesting. And I just wanted to share, many of you maybe already work with large businesses, but actually these tips that I want to share are actually relevant for winning business anywhere, really, is really understanding what the core strengths of your business are and how will these meet the need of the buyer or the corporation, whether that's large or small that I'm talking to. And business is about relationships. So how can you get close to, how can you build relationships with firms who could be potential customers? This isn't stuff that happens necessarily overnight. And understanding your competition, because most likely if you are bidding with a large corporate, you're not going to be a solo supplier that they're considering. They're probably going to have a whole roster of suppliers that they're looking at. So really knowing your competition, knowing what they do really well, and what you do better. And certainly know your pricing and the broader market pricing. Procurement often say, it isn't all about pricing, but one of the other things they will say is that they don't want suppliers to give a price that then means if they do win the business, that ultimately, it's a loss leader for them. They're not actually generating any revenue from the work that they're doing. So they absolutely say, do not underprice just to win. It's not worth it. They really want to build relationships with suppliers that will go on to be successful and sustainable. It's only going to be sustainable for the supplier if you're actually making profit off the work that you're doing. So please do keep that in mind. And that's absolutely come from our procurement colleagues directly. Certainly for winning business with large corporations, be ready for the long haul. These are long-term procurement programs and processes that don't happen overnight. And indeed, many of you might be like, do you know what? I don't want to kind of embark on a project that's going to take me, 9 to 12 months to come to fruition. I'm going to, focus on some of, other SMEs that I can work with more quickly. And I absolutely will understand that. But if you do want to work with large corporates, then definitely be ready for the long haul. And in fact, from those kind of informal introductions, maybe meeting somebody at an event, we estimate on average, it might be 3 years before something comes to fruition. Your timing's all going to be absolutely perfect. Certainly have your very short pitch practice perfectly so that people can understand really, really quickly what your business does. I'm always surprised by how difficult some business find it to actually articulate what they do really succinctly. Because often in a networking environment, whether that is in person when we're allowed to get together again, or in virtual, you don't have very long to kind of explain what you do. And absolutely for our women-owned business, find a niche, focus on that. The advice from corporations is please don't tell us that you can do everything, because we're probably not going to believe that you can either. But find a niche and really build around that. And it might be that is based on the research that you've done for that supplier to know what kind of, out of your portfolio of services, what would maybe work best for them. But understating and over-delivering, that is pretty straightforward, but it's advice that we've heard from the procurement teams. Don't overpromise. If you're saying that you're going to be able to do something, you absolutely need to be able to follow through. And if you do get invited in to do a pitch, or actually even if you were just going in for a first meeting, absolutely research the business that you're meeting, know their culture, if they've got a mission statement, what values they're working to, and try and tie that into the language and the terminology that you're using, maybe that's in your deck or in the language that you use during the meeting, understanding where there's maybe risks or threats to their business and how your product or service can help them around that. There's a ton of information online all the time, even things like the last speech that the CEO made, and really understanding what's resonating within their business. And I normally say to try and think like one of their team and what they're looking for and what their pain points and how your product or service can help them. So I mean, some of this is straightforward, but it's absolutely, you know, the kind of basic research that you should be doing before going in to talk to any potential client, really. Understanding their goals and how your services align to their strategy. Some of that will come from a discussion, but you know, there's also a lot of information that you can access beforehand. I definitely think this about know your own industry, really know what's going on and what the trends are. There, you know, often the corporations are looking to the, you know, to the suppliers for that expertise. And I certainly think this for many women-owned businesses around really getting involved and absolutely put your hand up, speak at events. It's a great way of raising the profile of you, but of your business. And I know, because I've worked with hundreds of business owners over the years, that often they really don't want to necessarily put their head above the parapet and offer to speak, but actually it's a great way, you know, to let more people know about your expertise and what your firm does. So I would absolutely recommend that. And it's always great to have, you know, at mainstream industry events to have more and more female speakers. So definitely keep that in mind. Obviously, is there anybody that can give you some, I've said insider knowledge, but I mean, it's, you know, using your network, who's connected on LinkedIn, who works there, and just understanding what's maybe going on. And then certainly from a procurement perspective, knowing what the bid cycle is. You might, for example, meet somebody, connect with somebody online next week, and it just so happens that we did the preferred supplier list for your product over the summer. So actually they're maybe not going to be reviewing that for another 18 months to 2 years. So worth knowing the timing and when you need to get in touch for when they restart that process, and identifying and understanding what is the right amount of time to be in regular contact with. This can be a bit tricky around, right, you know, how often do I touch base with them, or do I just leave it until 18 months down the line? You know, we'd suggest you kind of, you know, are in touch maybe every 4 or 5 months, but you would check with the individual around what works for them. But that's incredibly, if you can get the information, that's incredibly important. And I would say absolutely make sure that your social media and your web presence are exceptional. You know, the corporates, it's one of the first things they'll do. They'll go online, have a look at your website. So if you're saying, actually, I can do this, if it's not referenced anywhere on your website, they're probably not going to see that there is that expertise sitting there. So absolutely make sure that what you have put up online is what you want to say about your business. And in this sector, and you guys will know this because of the nature of this organization, but innovation is key. This is often why a large corporate will choose new and different suppliers, because they are bringing something innovative to the table, whether that is a product or a service, different mindset, whatever it might be. Innovation is the word that comes up again and again and again from within our procurement community. So absolutely keep that in mind and just think how you can keep continually, you know, upping your game and making sure that you're bringing new insight to the table for them all. I realize that's tons of information. I'm going to recommend this book. It's called Tackling the Titans. If you're interested in, winning more business with large multinationals, this little book, I have a copy on my desk all the time, has loads of great advice. It is quite US focused, but it's got lots of practical advice in there. So we'd absolutely say have a look at that. It's worth having a look at. And then just the final couple of slides. Lots of events, everything's virtual at the moment. We actually just did a whole suite of events here in Europe last week. So actually our next webinar is the 30th of November. You've obviously got lots of great content coming through this organization anyway, but there's lots of different things happening. And our next big dates for Europe will be our May conference next year. You can access all the different events that are online, but because everything's virtual, it really means you can access events all around the world with WeConnect, which is amazing. And I'm going to close on the Women-Owned logo. This is all about, as it says, bringing consumer recognition to products that are made by women. You can follow the hashtag #ByWomenOwned, and this trademark, and it is a trademark, is for use by businesses that are formally certified with the US organization or with WeConnect International globally. So it isn't something you can just use without, you do need to be formally certified. But if you're buying product service from other women-owned businesses, have a look at the hashtag and the Women-Owned logo website. I often use #ByWomenOwned when I'm posting stuff on LinkedIn, but I, keen to help our consumers more broadly know when products are made by women so they can buy from them. And that really is it, if you would like to know more, have a look on social media, see what we're doing. We have social media for Europe and the broader global social media channels as well. My contact details are there. Very happy for people to get in touch. And if it's piqued your interest enough, there is the registration link on these slides. Sharon, I'm happy for you to PDF and share them, not a problem. And there's a lot of information on the website. There's case studies. You can read more detail about events that we're hosting. There is a ton of great information, all sorts of webinar recordings that you can access, and you can look again at the corporate member list and see the organizations that we work with. It's all very public and you can access it there. But I hope it's given you a bit of an insight, a bit of a snapshot. I know it's probably pretty rapid fire, but bottom line is we want to help more corporations to be able to buy more products and services from women-owned businesses. And we want more women-owned businesses to be able to succeed and grow. And whether that's through selling to our corporations, brilliant, or indeed you might even simply be interested in selling to the other women-owned businesses in our international network. And we've got some great examples of women-owned businesses working collaboratively across the globe to deliver projects together. So would also love to see more of that. But I'm going to pause there. And I'm really happy to take questions, and feel free to ask any of the tricky questions that you maybe wouldn't normally ask, but I'm always happy to ask them.
Thanks, Maggie. We've got a couple of questions that have come in. So I'm going to start off on one that I think is on the tip of everyone's tongue. And it's around the 51%. So somebody has come in and said, we do not own a minimum of 51% between us, as the founder set up the company and rightly has the majority share. Does this mean we can't engage with this network? And why is the 51% important?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 51% is absolutely categoric, and it can be one or more women, and it can be female investors as long as minimum 51% of the shareholding is in female hands, then we're good. The reason is we know that if you spend money with women-owned firms, then money is going to women. If businesses are not majority female owned, you know, if say our business employs like 90% female employees, no problem. I mean, they'll get paid a salary, but you know that the ultimate big money is going to the male business owners. So we are at our core a women's economic empowerment campaign. We want to put money into the hands of women, and that's why this definition is set. And the second part of it is the definition is actually set by the multinational corporations that we work with. For an ethnic minority owned business, it would have to be majority ethnic minority owned. If it was LGBT, it has to be majority LGBTQ owned. So it's the standard across for supplier diversity programs. So unfortunately, if a business doesn't meet that 51%, and it can't be 50.5, it has to be 51 or more, then unfortunately, no, it wouldn't be eligible to be part of this program.
Thanks, Maggie. So you've talked a lot about different countries, and obviously WeConnect is an international firm. Where does the UK sit as a kind of priority within that?
Yeah, great question. So actually the UK was the pilot country way back when, 11 years ago. So we were the pilot, and I've actually worked with WeConnect for nearly 8 years. And so when I took over, really, we were really in Europe, kind of really focused on the UK, and the other European countries have grown in the last few years. We find that for many corporations, as they start to look at supply chain inclusion, if they've maybe got a program in the United States where supplier diversity is much more embedded, the UK is often one of the first markets that they come to. So it's our busiest country in Europe. It's where we have our most the largest representation of women-owned businesses are in the UK, and indeed globally, the UK is one of our strategic markets. You know, there's we maybe got focus on probably about 5 countries. Core focus on maybe 5 strategic ones, and the UK is one of them. So it's definitely very important. And I mean, I feel very lucky. I mean, any of you who work internationally, I mean, everything we're delivering is not everything. A lot of what we deliver is in English. We do have information on the website in other language, but English is the core business language. And I feel very blessed about that when I meet so many amazing business owners around the world who, you know, English is their second or their third language, and they're just as coherent as me, which is amazing. So yes, so UK is a very important market for us.
Thanks, Maggie. I've got another question, so bear with me with this because there's a kind of double part to it. So we work more in the innovation space, and by that they mean developing projects with large corporates rather than responding to formal tenders. Is this something that could be facilitated though, because it can be sometimes initially challenging to find the right person within them large corporates?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say it's in the name, the connections. So everything we're doing is around creating connections, and our core is around formal RFPs. I mean, we're doing that day in, day out, but absolutely we work on creating connections in other ways. And in fact, next month we are doing with Accenture, they're hosting an innovation summit, and we have submitted to them. I don't know how you quantify it, but we, as a global team, we chose our most innovative suppliers to go forward for this innovation summit and to participate. And that isn't, it's not about an RFP, it's about really how that innovation and how Accenture to access that innovation and share it with its clients and things like that. So we do spend time focusing on different ways to connect the women-owned businesses into the member buyers. But you're quite right, they are massive organizations, and it is not always easy to find the right contact immediately. So our core contacts are definitely sitting in supply chain and procurement, and many of the business owners we work with say, don't want to work with procurement. I want to work directly with the business. And what we'd say is totally understand that procurement is there as an enabler, and they can help you find the right business stakeholders, but it takes time.
And just a comment from KTN's perspective on that, if you do want connections as well to more research and development teams, you can connect with KTN and we can help try and facilitate that as well. So you've got two options there of great connection organizations.
I guess the key thing of any organization you're part of, you've got to get involved. And I say the same thing to our corporate members as I would to women-owned businesses who are registering with us. If you want help and insight, come along, come to it. I know they're virtual, but participate in events, ask for insight, ask for, but if you kind of register and then just sit back and never do anything, then, nothing happens. And I say that to both of our stakeholder groups. So.
And I would totally agree with that as well, Maggie. So on the kind of back of the last question, can we connect to take a service idea and contact a corporate rather than the corporate asking for the service?
We offer proactive introductions to the member buyers for businesses that are formally certified with WeConnect International. So if you're simply registered, then no, we're not, we don't offer anything proactive. But if you're one of our core group of certified businesses, we part of that core group, then yes, we will facilitate targeted introductions. And it can be around all sorts, actually. I mean, some people, they might be saying, running a roundtable discussion, and they want some of the corporate participants to sign up and be, to come to their, to part of their events. They might be running a demo and want some of the corporate representatives to participate, or they might want to try and run a pilot with somebody, to try out something, and they want the opportunity to, to have, like a month's trial. And so we absolutely help with things like that. But it's for the businesses that are formally certified.
Thanks, Maggie. So next question for you are, what are your top 3 things that they should ask or must ask or find out about the partner at the beginning that will save pain later on?
When you say a partner, do you mean
the supplier? The client, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so when RFP opportunities come my way, I'm normally clarifying things before we even start, because I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I mean, it is things around, have you got minimum expectations? Is there somewhere down the line where you're suddenly going to ask me for like an ISO accreditation that I don't have, or that I'm going to need, say, a specific level of, say, professional indemnity insurance, and can I get all my ducks in a row beforehand? And actually, a lot of the corporations we work with have supplier codes of conduct and what they're expecting from suppliers on their websites. And so this would come back to my point around that research about really understanding. So, when you're going in, you're like, actually, I've seen online, they have 60-day payment terms for everybody. And then as a business owner, you just have to make the decision whether you want to go forward with it, or actually 60 days is not negotiable, so you're not going to go forward for that business. So I think there's those two aspects around, things that you will need and policies that you'll need, and whether you've got them on, whether you're ready. And then I guess I guess as WeConnect, we try and do this ahead of time so that when we are making referrals, we know there's a genuine opportunity, because what I also don't want to happen is that something comes out and they're simply checking the market. They probably have got their supplier already lined up, and they're doing a bit of an exercise. And I absolutely don't want to ask our women-owned businesses to be engaged in those, because for smaller suppliers, these processes take time, and I don't want anybody to waste time. I don't want my time to be wasted. I don't want the women-owned businesses' time to be wasted, or the corporate. So we do try and check that ahead. And then a final piece, I don't know if it's a top tip, but definitely make sure your values align. So if you do end up winning business with one of these companies, is that going to make your heart sing? Are they the kind of company that you want to work with and be aligned to? And I definitely know some of our business owners, I sometimes approach them with an opportunity and they're just like, yeah, no, don't want to work in that sector, don't want to work with them, and I think that's just your own integrity around, right, who do we want to, and it's that can come down to any sector. But yeah, I touched on one of the big things can be around payment terms, and we do encourage the member buyers to we encourage them. I would like to see them having really short payment terms for all of the different suppliers all of the time. And in fact, during COVID, a number of them have really shortened payment terms for our diverse suppliers, which is brilliant. And I'm always saying, right, can we have that just as a standard part of the process, that that they don't have to do the 60-90 day payment terms. So that's often the big pain point. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Maggie. So I've got another question, and it's a very simple one. Where on the site can you see the corporates listed? I know you showcased them earlier.
Go under member. So there's one, I think it's called member buyers. There's a drop down and it says current member buyers. I am just gonna, buyer membership, current member buyers.
Perfect.
The whole list there, and it's very public and you can see them all. Yeah.
Thanks, Maggie. And another very quick one, is the certification fee an annual fee?
It is. It's an annual fee. The fee is dependent on your turnover. So if you're a bit smaller, you pay a bit less. And I think if you're a bit bigger, I think over $2 million turnover, you pay the top fee. It's payable every year. Year one, you have to do the whole formal accreditation process. We look at a lot of documentation to confirm the majority ownership, management and control. Years 2 and 3, you can renew online. If there's changes, then we need to see the documentation, but if everything's okay, then you can renew process online. And then every 4 years, we redo the formal review. It is pretty detailed, but it is very robust. And the bottom line is, I go back to the point I made on during the presentation, this is a tool for the corporations to know that they are absolutely spending their money with women-owned businesses.
Another quick question, is there a deadline for applying?
No, not at all. It's open all the time. It's ongoing. You can do the process online. We have just in the last couple of months launched a new online platform. It's called the WeCommunity. It's based on SAP Ariba technology. Some of you may have used this already. If you already have an SAP Ariba login, then you can log in using that and then access the WeCommunity from there. And if you don't, then you can start from scratch. But as I say, you can register for free. But when you do, you have to, some of my team can help with it, but you can choose all these different categories to really identify your business. So definitely have the mindset on around, if I was a corporate or if somebody was going to buy my services, what are they searching for if they search on a database to find me? If I'm an events management company, what words would they be using? And just really think about how you profile your business.
Thanks, Maggie. This one's a little bit longer. So what is the minimum size of business you will support? They're going to say, I'm a consultancy on less than £50,000 turnover. Would that count?
Yep, great. It's a really good question, and we get asked it all the time. There is actually no minimum turnover requirement to register with WeConnect International. most of the businesses, I would say, who are registered with us in the UK are formally limited entities, registered on Companies House. We have a few that are maybe sole traders, maybe freelancers, but to be fair, we are primarily focused in, formally incorporated entities. I would say for a business that is that size, it's probably unlikely that we're going to say be able to win you business with, say, but there is lots of opportunity to win business with the other women-owned businesses, depending on what you do. Plus, and I haven't gone into this in this set of in this presentation, but we actually have quite a large focus on what we call tier 2. And this is really about, I'm going to use IBM as the example. IBM, I'm pretty confident, will outsource, for example, their staffing and recruitment to a large staffing and recruitment supplier, maybe like a Manpower or a Hays or an Adecco. So actually, if I'm a staffing and recruitment business, women-owned, I'm probably not going to work directly with IBM. I'm probably going to work through this tier 1 supplier, a Manpower and Adecco, whatever. And we have a lot of focus on what we call tier 1 and tier 2 programs around that acknowledgement that it's not easy to work with these large companies. And actually, for many small businesses, it's more comfortable, I'm going to say, to be a tier 2 supplier working through a prime supplier, because you don't have to then deal and do all the big negotiations with the client directly. If you're not formally limited, I'd also say it's a formally limited company. I also think for a lot of these large businesses, it can be quite tricky to get onboarded with them because they are looking for that formal legal entity. And if you're a freelancer, that doesn't fall into the scope of what we're doing through procurement and supply chain. So I've asked our corporates about this around, look, I've got some freelancers, they do this, and it's not, they are looking for the formally incorporated entities. I hope that, so there's no minimum. And I mean, we're the same as probably most entrepreneurial organizations. And you guys probably know this. I mean, something like 97% of SMEs in the UK are micro, less than 10 staff. Something like 3% are small and less than 1% are the medium, the bigger suppliers. If we put on top of that the fact that women own less than 20% of businesses in the UK, there's a whole breadth of businesses who are within the WEConnect network. And, we've got some who are multi-million dollar, great. They can also work with women business. And we've got plenty that are micro, so.
Brilliant. I've got 2 final questions for you.
Okay.
One is quite a specific ask. Wouldn't a platform for supporting neurodiverse children and adults be supported?
I didn't catch the first part of it. It's a platform for what?
Supporting neurodiverse children and adults.
Yes, possibly. I don't know. Often I say to businesses, if it's something quite different, and I obviously don't know all the businesses, there's a ton of support that you can access anyway. Even if we're not able to connect you to a corporate for a business opportunity, there's lots of training, advice, webinars, other support that you can access, as well as accessing and trying to knock on the door of our corporate buyers. So if you've got a platform like that, it'd be understanding how would it fit for a corporate, where would it fit within their ecosystem, what you provide, and you'd probably have to help me and the team understand that. I have to ask a lot of our suppliers for more info, because I've got a small, a high level overview of loads of different things that they all do. It's probably the same for you. I mean, there's so many different businesses out there, but yes, as I say, and the registration is free. So I'm kind of like, if it sounds interesting, register. It means that you're on our database, and our member buyers can actually log into the database themselves and look for suppliers directly. So yes, we help a lot, but they often go in and do it themselves.
Perfect. And then final question, which I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer on this webinar. We've been asked what percentage of BAME women-owned businesses secure contracts or are your members?
Oh, interesting. Great question. I don't have that data to hand, but certainly as an organization, we've been discussing this across the team. I don't actually have that. I don't personally have access to that data. So if I say, for example, if I downloaded some of the information, I don't have it. I could probably look at some of it anecdotally just based on what I know, but I wouldn't like to quote, but I can certainly kind of do a bit of digging. We've had this discussion globally because actually, you know, obviously there's just so much going on, and we want to support all different demographies. And one of the things is, although our core is women owned, they can also be ethnic minority owned, they can also be LGBT owned, disabled owned, you know, all the things, but they have to be women owned. So we've got a real mix across the region and globally, obviously. And yeah, but I don't have a figure off the top of my head. If I'd known, I would have done some I would have done some research for you beforehand. That would have been I would have been happy to find that out.
Thanks, Maggie. And I know I said that was the last question, but you had one agency come in, so I'm just going to quickly tag that on. So what about social enterprise and legal status such as CICs or charities?
Yeah, great question. So actually, if you are not part of them, please join Social Enterprise UK. They have a bi-corporate social challenge. So if you're a social enterprise, I would absolutely align to that. For us, some of our women-owned businesses that are formally limited do have a social enterprise, but it is difficult for social enterprises sometimes to prove the majority female ownership, and as such, they can't register. However, check out Social Enterprise UK. They are doing a ton of great stuff. We also work pretty closely with them. We're often at events together, and many of the corporations that are part of the Bi-Social Corporate Challenge are the members that we work with as well.
So, okay, so that's brought us to the end of the webinar today. So I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us today, Maggie. We'll be circulating details of how you connect with WeConnect International via email. Recording will be made available shortly via the Women in Innovation playlist on KTN's YouTube channel. And I also want to say thank you to all of our delegates for joining us today. If you want to keep up to date with the Women in Innovation news and events, you can sign up to our newsletter or join our online community on LinkedIn. So once again, thank you very much, Maggie, and thank you to everyone.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.